Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today we're reviewing Taxi Chaos on the Nintendo Switch. This review was originally written by the superb Ollie Reynolds and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. It's been a minute since we got a last proper honest-to-goodness taxi driving game. I mean, putting aside a couple of questionable mobile spin-offs, Sega's own Crazy Taxi series has remained dormant for more than a decade. Since then, of course, even the word taxi has largely been relegated from the English language for the far less fashionable Uber, although we're fairly confident that there will never be a Crazy Uber game, but who even knows in this world? And speaking of this world, it is a much different place than it was back when Crazy Taxi launched, and the genre has, by and large, gone the way of the dodo. Taxi Chaos is somewhat of a spiritual successor to the Crazy Taxi franchise. It's an admirable modern take on the game, proving that games like this still have a place in 2021, although we're disappointed to report that its overall appeal is diminished by flawed gameplay, lack of longevity, and a few annoying glitches. The premise will be instantly familiar to fans of the Crazy Taxi franchise, taking place within the open world of New Yellow City, which is basically a condensed cartoon version of New York City. You play as one of two characters, Vinny and Cleo, and you must pick up your clientele and drop them off at the location in the quickest time possible. The quicker you drive and the more risks you take along the way, the more money you'll be rewarded from each passenger. Your total fare amount is then tallied at the end of the time session and displayed via an online leaderboard in the main menu. New Yellow City itself is surprisingly well realized. The streets feel dense with buildings, trees, and signposts. Much like the real New York, there's a big park in the center with a pond and instantly recognizable locations and landmarks like Times Square and the Chrysler Building. They're all here. The amount of pedestrians and cars on the road is a bit disappointing, and the city feels a bit dead as a result, but we've been assured by the developer that this will be increased in a future patch. If you've ever been to New York, then you'll know that the road layout is rather like a grid pattern. This is replicated in Taxi Chaos, and as a result, there's an overall lack of variety or indeed verticality to the world. Don't expect any steep slopes or curving roads like you might in the original Crazy Taxi or even The Simpsons Road Rage. Additionally, the overall space is a bit smaller than you might expect, and although the game encourages you to jump and use ramps to reach new heights, these opportunities are few and far between. It's a shame because when you do manage to hop up onto a rooftop, it's exhilarating and it can really cut down your time. The mode you'll likely spend most of the time in is Arcade, and this is the standard time challenge where you drop off customers to earn money with a handy pointer, letting you know in which direction you need to be doing the going. Pro mode is very much exactly the same thing, except there's no pointer to help you out, so you need to know the layout of the map like the back of your hand to succeed here, like, I suppose, a real taxi driver from the past. The final mode is free roam, where you're free to drive the streets of New Yellow City, but without the constraints of a time limit. And this is great for learning where certain destinations are located and can be applied to both arcade and pro mode. How long Taxi Chaos lasts is largely dependent on how willing you are to climb the online leaderboard. Although we've been told that the unlocking process is being tweaked in a patch, there are only 7 car models to unlock, and it doesn't take long to get them all. In addition to the normal taxi rides, there are also hidden items dotted around the city, though there's little incentive to collect everything. There's an in-game achievement list that is reasonably extensive, though again, you're unlikely to unlock the majority of them through just normal play without even realizing it. Graphically, the game looks decent enough, and it runs at a relatively smooth, stable pace for the majority of the time, but there were a few occasions where our taxi crashed into a building and got stuck, which forced us to restart, which wasn't brilliant. With a few more cars and pedestrians in the upcoming patch, we're sure the city will look and feel much livelier than at present, but nevertheless, there's a distinct generic feel to the visuals that we just cannot shake. It's lacking its own voice, and as a result looks and feels a lot like a lot of cut-and-paste mobile games. The soundtrack unfortunately doesn't fare much better. We're told that more upbeat rock songs will be included at a later date, although don't expect anything from The Offspring, but the music available now is just quite simply underwhelming and fails to inject the experience with any kind of much-needed adrenaline. Taxi Chaos feels very much like a proof of concept. It's certainly evidence that a taxi game has its place in 2021, though it's lacking that vital spark that would truly make it a must-play title. The city itself is well made, with plenty of sights to behold, but the overall visual design feels just a bit generic and doesn't really stand out at all. There are few incentives to play for extended periods of time, so how long the game lasts you is largely dependent on your own willingness to climb the online leaderboard. Nevertheless, Taxi Chaos is an admirable revival of a genre that's been dormant for far too long, and a good foundation for a potential sequel down the line. You've reached the end of the video and it's time for Alex's personal thoughts. Oh my, I don't like this game at all. I've played Crazy Taxi, not to a ludicrous degree, but it's been fun, you know. I never got majorly into it, but I enjoyed it for the time that I played it. This, on the other hand, I mean, it's 2021, and I know it's not, you know, a AAA release, but even so, it feels very much like an old, like properly old school mobile game, like the sort of things that you get on the iPhone 4 and stuff like that. It just feels so aged. One of the music tracks is literally I counted this. It's a 4-second loop with, like, occasionally at one point I think they drop the drums every like 16 seconds or so. But it's 4 seconds on loop, and it's so boring. To be honest, I think that's how I'd sum this game up myself. It's just boring. There's nothing inherently broken about it, and the game is fine, but it's just not fun. I've played this for a couple of hours, and I felt like I'd seen everything I needed to see within about 15 minutes, honestly, and it is just the same objectives over and over again. And more importantly, the same lines of dialogue over and over again. There's a decent array of them, but considering how fast-paced the gameplay is, you're hearing about your driver's hobbies like 3 times in a single run, which is, it's too much. It's too much. And Ollie's right, the streets are barren. It's just not much of it. I just can't get along with this game at all. It's kind of a shame because, yeah, this kind of game, I think it should exist in 2021, and I think Sega maybe should do something with the Crazy Taxi series themselves, but I don't know, maybe they don't think there's any money in it. Who knows? All I know is this isn't the replacement that we should probably be looking for. You've reached the end of Alex's personal... No, I just found this. I accidentally did this in the game when I was capturing footage. I thought it was fun. I wanted to acknowledge it with my voice. This was the most fun I had with the game.